Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Woke Gladiator 2 gets massive dislikes on YouTube for diversity remake. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Gladiator 2 is not being really well received. It's getting a lot of negative reviews, which entertainment media likes to call review bombing. When you put out a trailer and you ask people to look at it as a promotional vehicle for a Hollywood movie, people have a right to either like it or dislike it. Right now, people are disliking the movie more than they like the movie. How do we know they dislike it? Because remember when YouTube took out dislikes? You can pretty easily, for free, add a little plugin to your browser that will tell you how to see dislikes on a video. So far, the trailer's at 143,000 likes versus 324,000 dislikes. And there's a lot of things that would make you want to dislike this trailer. The first thing on this trailer is I see Denzel Washington laughing in an enthusiastic way. And all of us remember Denzel Washington from Training Day, a great movie. He was great in that movie. And it feels exactly like the moment when he said my N-word. No, I'm not going to say it here on my YouTube channel. I don't need to say it. You know what I'm talking about. But what is he doing in ancient Rome, playing basically what looks like the Training Day guy with a Brooklyn accent, becoming the most prominent character shown in Gladiator? Is he a slave that seems to take on an emperor and become a famous fighter himself? No, that's not what seems to be his role in this movie. So why are we telling his story? Why are we even dealing with his story in a movie called Gladiator? Because this is yet another way that they're trying to figure out how to erase as much history as possible, how to destroy a brand as much as possible, and convert it into something that they can use for an agenda. They've done it with Star Wars. They've done it with Marvel. This reminds me a lot of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which was a movie about the world of Wakanda, not about Black Panther, but they called it Black Panther. So what are you really trying to do here? If you watch the trailer, you don't just get to see Denzel Washington being Mr. New York Training Day. There are some interesting action sequences, but he feels to me like an omniscient author who would be commenting on the characters and what's going on in the story world, but not really part of the story. But somehow they injected him into the story, like as if you took an omniscient author, and this is what an omniscient author is. Let me do my definitions. I should say omniscient narrator. An omniscient narrator is the all-knowing voice in a story. The narrator has greater insight into the narrative events, context, and the character's motives, unspoken thoughts, and experiences than any individual character does. And you do have Denzel Washington's character talking about how Rome is obsessed with power and what needs to happen to Rome. And then later in the trailer, the rap music comes in, which why is there rap music in Gladiator? It's kind of changing the aesthetic of the brand of what you expect when you see Gladiator. And the trouble with all of this is it's great to want to try to diversify things, but you need to have a character play a role and maintain the original aesthetic. If you go beyond that, like they're trying to do this in a new format and a new way in Gladiator, I haven't seen this done yet. They didn't just race swap characters. They changed the format on it so that diversity could comment and create criticisms of the original brand and the culture of Rome in the story itself. It feels strange because an omniscient narrator doesn't actually belong in the story. They're supposed to make little comments off to the side. So if you wanted Denzel Washington to comment, you could have him comment off to the side. It would still be off-putting and it would take you out of the story. But the story could just continue and it wouldn't interfere with you being able to enjoy the story and enjoy the movie. This is clearly a movie. It's not going to be easy to watch. That's the problem when they jam representation into things. They don't do it smoothly within a narrative. They basically need to do it in such a way that it interrupts the flow from what you wanted to see from that kind of brand or that kind of movie. You need to be talked down to. You're not supposed to like the original version of the movie. You can often tell an omniscient narrator by the use of lines like, Quote, he had no way of knowing that things were about to get much worse. Or, waiting for her around the corner was the killer, looking for his 10th victim. This is known as dramatic irony, and it's used in many third-person omniscient stories. But here's the problem with having an omniscient narrator. Writers using an omniscient narrator face the challenge of avoiding information overload, maintaining a consistent voice while switching perspectives, and preserving suspense without revealing too much. They also must ensure their own voice does not intrude, disrupting the story's flow and diminishing reader immersion. There is no immersion where there is diversity. Diversity is there to ruin what you expected and tell you what you're allowed to now enjoy or appreciate. And if you don't enjoy it and you don't appreciate it, you've got a problem with someone's race. That's their take. Of course, that's not the truth, but that's the nonsense they try to sell. But I don't think this movie's going to do all that well, because when you've got this amount of negative backlash, you're going to have a lot of negative buzz about the movie. And if you watch the trailer yourself, you will see Denzel Washington does ruin this movie for you. And then later on, halfway through the trailer, you've got Jay-Z rapping about the Coliseum, and it's completely obviously not appropriate. If you make a movie like this, it's got to be an original movie. And I can't recall the title, but I do think there was a black Gladiator Roman kind of movie that recently came out. I don't know if it did any business or not, but if you're going to do something like this, it's got to be original. You can't throw this on top of an existing franchise and expect it to do well. This is a Paramount movie, and right now Paramount needs all the money it can possibly get because they're trying to justify selling the company while they're losing a fortune on their streaming service. From The Hollywood Reporter, the Gladiator 2 trailer is getting review bombed for 3 reasons. It's not review bombs. Just because people don't like what you did with the trailer or with the brand or with the presentation of the movie, it doesn't mean it's a bomb. It doesn't mean people are toxic fans out to get you. It means, no, you can't just do racial commentary on established brands. Whether it's a white racial commentary on a black brand where white people will be criticizing black people, you can't have black people criticizing what was a white culture for the most part. We saw the first movie. We have some familiarity with Rome. Yes, Rome was involved in multiple cultures. But we're not looking for racial commentary and criticism on cultures. We would just like to watch something that felt like the first movie and didn't have such a ridiculous, obtrusive character with a New York accent in Rome. And Denzel Washington is a good actor. He could give you any accent you would need. He could play an effective role in the Gladiator franchise. This is not an effective role. And why they wanted him to do this is beyond me, except to destroy the original franchise. The trailer suggests the long-awaited sequel could be a big hit for Paramount, but some fans think way too much about the Roman Empire. A lot of men do sit around thinking about the Roman Empire. I'm intrigued by the Roman Empire. I don't think about it a lot. A lot of men do. And that's a reference to that cultural meme. But people just don't need the social, racial criticism of the Roman Empire when they're going to see a movie that's not what they're seeing the movie for. The action-packed trailer for Paramount's Gladiator 2 has racked up 215 million global cross-platform views in just a few days and suggests Ridley Scott might have pulled off his long-awaited sequel to his Oscar-winning 2000 epic. The new film is led by Paul Mescal as a grown-up Lucius and also stars Pedro Pascal and Denzel Washington in what looks to be a rousing spectacle. I've already seen enough of Pedro Pascal. I like him in The Last of Us. That's about enough for me. I don't know about you, but I don't need to see him all over the place. However, there is a cohort of fans who claim they're not entertained. While Paramount's official trailer on YouTube ranks as one of the studio's most watched in a 24-hour period ever, and plenty of fans have been wildly enthusiastic, it also has, and let's get the current numbers, 143,000 likes and 324,000 dislikes. Those ratios don't tend to change. And the negative narratives about this movie would probably be enough to sink it if it wasn't so obvious that Denzel was just put in there to comment on white culture. It's really ridiculous. What's also interesting is these dislikes and the view and the count of dislikes used to be presented in Hollywood media as, well, don't trust all these dislikes that you see people talking about. Those numbers aren't necessarily accurate. So they tried to pretend the number wasn't real. Now they're using the number themselves. Wading into the comments on video and on Twitter, there seem to be 3 reasons for the backlash. and 2 are specific to the way the trailer was put together and seemingly not reflective of overall feelings about the film. First complaint: the trailer, clocking in at over 3 minutes, is being criticized for seemingly giving away too much. Audiences tend to dislike this, understandably. The second reason, and this is by far the most cited, is the trailer uses Kanye West and Jay-Z's No Church in the Wild. Some are asking, why have rap music in a movie about the Roman Empire? Part of the original Gladiator's appeal was that it was unabashedly classical, a throwback to sandal and toga epics like Ben-Hur and Spartacus. It also had a beloved soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, whose anthem, The Battle, is one of the best action anthems ever written. Of course, it's hard to imagine such contemporary music being used during the film's ancient Rome sequences. This is just a trailer, so perhaps they'll fix it when the actual movie comes out. But that is how they're presenting the material. We didn't make this trailer. Paramount made this trailer. Paramount incorporated rap music during Roman battle scenes. And maybe it all comes together and maybe it's great. But the way it's presented in the trailer, it just doesn't feel right. It's not compelling. It's not appropriate. The aesthetic is wrong. And because of all of the diversity, remake, race-swapping nonsense we've seen, it's really difficult to give them the benefit of the doubt. And even if you gave them the benefit of the doubt, it's just not compelling. And when something's not compelling, whose fault is that? The audience? The supposedly toxic fans? No, it's whoever's making the content. Whether it's a comic book or a movie or a TV show, it's the same thing. Impress your viewers or they're not going to like it. And if they don't like it, they may dislike it. And then they're going to talk about it on social media. The third reason for the backlash: some are griping about Denzel Washington's role in the film. The Oscar winner plays Macrinus, who's described as a cruel power broker who keeps a stable of gladiators. The actor looks like he's having an absolute blast, and great for Denzel Washington. But that's not the purpose of being in a movie. You're supposed to be presenting yourself as a character that doesn't take you out of the aesthetic of what you expect the movie is going to be. However, some are complaining that Denzel Washington still has his New York accent. Of course, Washington's voice is so iconic, it might be weird if he suddenly adopted a British accent. We have dealt with this concept of actors having appropriate accents for the movie and for the aesthetic that they're actually acting in. In this case, this was deliberately done so he could comment as Denzel Washington rather than him just participating in the story. And here's where it gets ugly. Some of the comments ridiculing the idea of Washington in the film have been racist. And when you combine that with people complaining about a rap song, it looks like another sadly all too familiar toxic fandom wave. There is no such thing as toxic fandom. When people expect something from a brand, if you don't deliver for that brand, it's the fault of the company. It's not the fault of the fans that made it a successful brand in the first place by supporting your creative work. Just because they decided that Denzel Washington needed to come in basically as his Training Day character and comment on white culture, while they brought in rap songs by black artists, it doesn't make it the fault of the fans that were expecting something consistent with the first Gladiator movie, which is not what this is. Denzel Washington's social experiment in Rome continues beyond this movie. Anybody upset about Washington wandering around ancient Rome is going to have to keep on being upset into next year. Washington is also starring in Training Day directors Anton Fuqua's upcoming as yet untitled Netflix feature about the Roman-era commander Hannibal, written by original Gladiator writer John Logan. One more thing about the Gladiator music: Zimmer opted not to return for the sequel, and Harry Gregson Williams scored the film instead. Quote, "It's really simple. I've done that world, and I think it did well," Zimmer previously explained to Curzon about not returning. Quote, "And all I do is set myself up for either trying to repeat myself, which I don't want to do, or getting slaughtered by critics who say you didn't do it as well as you did it the first time. We have a gladiator fight in Dune Part 2, right? We have a gladiator fight in Gladiator, obviously, but they couldn't be more different." This from a man who scored 4 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but an artist is allowed to decline, to say, look, for what this is, I've done enough of that. People like what I did. That's in my repertoire now. That's part of my resume. I don't need to do it again. But let's be honest, what they wanted to do was a deliberate cultural change so that one culture could stand on top of and comment on another culture. Thank you, Denzel Washington and Paramount. The power of independent people to comment on what they do like and what they don't like and why they like it and why they don't like it is only growing on social media. Social media can make or break any franchise, any movie, any project. We saw it recently with The Acolyte. Acolyte completely destroyed because it was terrible. And it didn't satisfy its customers or its potential customers. It was made a mockery because they didn't respect the material. If you don't respect the material, your customers and your potential customers on social media will make sure that you know about it and will make sure they warn others, don't trust this company. Don't spend your good money or your time or your effort on this company's products. They're playing a social justice game with you. And when we see the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, and when we see the comments on social media, and when we listen to those YouTube videos, we know who's being straight with us and who isn't being straight with us. I'm not excited for Gladiator 2 because of what they decided to do with an otherwise classic franchise. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.